Join your host, Maddie Roche, as she brings you into a community of fee-only financial advisors who are successfully building profitable businesses that serve the next generation of clients. Learn from innovative advisors whose unique stories will inspire you to dream big and take action on your goals. Are you ready to live your best life and help your clients live theirs? Then you're in the right place.
Hello, welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm Maddie Roche, your host. I'm excited to have XYPN member Ashley Murphy, founder of Areté Wealth and the Global Financial Planning Institute, on the show with me today. This is Ashley Murphy's second visit to XYPN Radio. Nearly 3 years ago, he shared his career journey and expertise in the expat space. Today, he joins us to give an update on how his niche can turn into a full-blown industry-shaking initiative. After recognizing the gap in technical training in the space of cross-border and international planning, Ashley spearheaded an initiative to create content, training, and a designation around the expertise. As Ashley discusses on the podcast, advising in this space is complicated, and like some other niches, demands a specific level of technical competence. Ashley recently had an article on Kitsis's blog talking about the considerations of cross-border planning and issues advisors may run into. Ashley shares with us how his passion project for the GFP is changing the direction of his firm, and he encourages anyone who wants to get in this space to do so. There's an unlimited number of clients out there in dire need of cross-border planning from an advisor who has done their research. If you're interested in turning your passion project into a full-blown second business, this show is for you. Avocado toast, selfies, a mountain of student loan debt. Gen Y is anything but traditional, and with over 75 million people, it's a population you don't want to ignore. Learn more about how to serve this unique population in our guide called Attract and Profitably Serve Millennial Clients in Your RIA. Discover 3 key ways to tap into the millennial market and 6 things that they want from their financial advisor. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/millennials for your free copy. You can find any of the resources we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/285. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN radio listeners. It's a community of advisors we've all been looking for that's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here's my interview with Ashley. Hi, Ashley. Welcome to XYPN Radio.
Maddie, so excited to be here. So great to be back.
It is great to have you back. I did not facilitate your first interview back in 2018, but you have been a longtime XYPN member, and you certainly have a great story to share. I'm so excited to get an update from you about Areté, your firm, and especially some of the stuff that you've been working on behind the scenes that has been pretty big in your world. So, yeah. Ashley, why don't you let the listeners know just a little bit about you and your firm just generally, maybe for folks that haven't yet listened to that podcast.
It's funny, Maddie. So I don't actually haven't been a member of XY Planning Network nearly as long as I should have been. And when I say should have been, I was the guy that invited Alan to the study group that in turn spawned him, that inspired him to launch XY Planning Network. But I was the odd kid out. I was still doing insurance, much to my chagrin as I look back about things I wish I hadn't done. But I did for 4 years, and it wasn't until mid-2017 that I joined XY. But yeah, how things been going? What's happened since then? It's a remarkable period of time to reflect upon, because in that time, if we look at say July 1st, so beginning of Q3 to the end of Q2 2020, I've experienced 300% growth, and it's kind of continued on that pace. Actually, now in the second 2 quarters, not that we're done here, and with 2020 yet, but hopefully, fingers crossed that with all this good news we're starting to see with vaccines, and maybe not the winter that hasn't been so positive, but I'm remaining optimistic. Things will hold on through the rest of this year. So things have been growing like gangbusters. It was actually also around the time I spoke to Alan that I had made my first hire. That stuck, I should say. It wasn't my first hire, but we've been together now for almost 3 years. That's Kellen Enright, fantastic paraplanner of mine. And I've also got a full-time, which sounds crazy for a firm of my size, where it's about 60 client households, 54 million in AUM as of today. I've got a full-time marketing guy, but the reason he's full-time is will come out later in the conversation. But things have been going great. So yeah, Areté is doing well. We actually have a retreat this weekend. I'm getting together with my marketing guy in Miami, and I think we're going to take the decision to end the domestically focused business simply because we've been going so hard on this Aussie expat niche for so long. We rarely get prospects that are like just plain old domestic. Sometimes we do, from those legacy clients that make a referral or something, or NAPFA or whatever. But really, it's undifferentiated. And rarely am I too excited by those prospects that come along. What really gets my heart racing is a client, say I just onboarded. I mean, she's literally just the perfect kind of client I'm looking for. A young lady who's been extraordinarily successful with her clothing business in New York. She's an Aussie expat. Business is worth $7 million, and because she's been focused so firmly on her business for so long, she's done basically nothing, in terms of the financial planning side. And so the nature of the engagement is really, really broad. So we've got the business owner stuff. That's great. I love that. I got the SEPA designation a little earlier this year, so helping her think through the exit planning side of it. So there's tons of domestic planning work, tons of business owner work, and then there's all the expat stuff there. So there's a lot of meat on the bone with a client like that. You can charge a fair fee to someone who's got that sort of income and net worth, and it's worth our while. We really dig deep and can move the needle for her, and make her dreams come true.
Oh, that's awesome. Ashley, you mentioned Aussie expats. I'm interested. Is that your niche and what you consider your niche? But you mentioned kind of business planning and exit strategy, that sort of stuff. What is your ideal niche?
Yeah. So when I launched, I have a background as an entrepreneur, straight out of university. That's what I was doing. I had a funded startup. And so when I made the transition some years later, was it some years, like I'm 80 years old or something. I mean, 6 years later, I made a transition, but I did it very intentionally. So I had 5 target markets that I'd identified. And I don't know if I can recall all of them, but I really, wanted to scatter my bets a little bit here. And one of them was the Aussie expat angle. Another one was business owners. And both of them made a lot of sense for me and who I am and my history and so forth. And so I got traction very early on with business owners, given a background in entrepreneurship, but also in corporate finance. I did that for about 5 years before becoming a financial advisor. So that one took off early, but it wasn't until the end of 2014 when I had a referral from an advisor, mentor / friend of mine. She said, well, gosh, you're an Australian. You must know everything there is to know about Aussie expats and, the financial services market there and financial planning. And of course, I didn't know anything. I'd moved from Australia when I was, 23 or something like that. I didn't know a thing. So I enrolled in a graduate diploma of financial planning there and really started schooling myself on what there was to know. And because I felt that's the only way to do it. I'd been attending the FPA's International and Cross-Border Knowledge Circle group since 2010 in Denver. I remember the first breakout session I attended, and there was so many things that one needed to know to really properly serve that target market. And it was intimidating. I mean, they were throwing alphabets, acronyms at me left and right. And I had no idea what they're even talking about. So I thought, man, I've got to study up, and learn what I don't know, about this particular target market. So that's what I did. Yeah, I went and studied up on that and learned about it. But anyway, sometimes I waffle on here, Maddie, with get so excited, with what I'm talking about that I just want to make sure I answered your question there.
No, you did. You did, and I'm thankful that you brought up what you did, because there are certain niches that really call upon specific technical expertise, and I think a lot of advisors enter into this industry thinking, oh, I'll take anyone that fogs a mirror. But ultimately, if you have a client with massive student loan debt, there's a real technical expertise that you need to know about, and it sounds like there's that here with your expertise. Is that correct?
I think that's exactly correct. And I love that you've used that term. There was a thread going on XY for a little while there, and, to do with, what is a niche? And I would say that the technical one is probably the first rung below niche. So meaning you've got a niche, but then beneath that, there's a marketing niche, just I identify with, whatever category, but there's really no specific technical knowledge that you need to work in that market. And then the technical niches, and amongst the technical niches, I'm sure there are more, but I would say there's special needs planning, late stage college planning, where you can shift. Joe Messenger's it's got a great material on that. Student loans, of course. It used to be same sex, and maybe there still is. Same sex is probably a bit of both, probably marketing and technical. But with DOMA, a lot of that has simplified, thankfully. That's about it as far as I can think of on the technical side. I was just listening. I was in the gym this morning listening to my old friend and mentor Rich Azaga's podcast on XY on Kitsis, and he talks a lot about real estate. I don't think that really is that technically different. I think it's like if you understand a P&L, if you looked at one or two properties, it's APODs as they're called, annual property operating data. Then it's pretty easy to understand. But yeah, those are the technical areas that I would point to. And the expat one is in my mind is far and away the most complicated in terms of technical knowledge that you need. So the way I would divide up, I think it's very, very important. Language is important. Words have meaning. And so I always use the term international and cross-border, because international really means if you're in the US as we are, and you're working with clients that have moved here from abroad, there's two ways that you could work with them. You could say, listen, I don't know anything about where you're from. They could be from Austria or Zimbabwe or anywhere in between. You could say, I don't know anything about where you're from, and that's fine. I appreciate that. But I'm going to be upfront and say that. I can't help you with your Austrian or Zimbabwean retirement plan or investments or whatever. But that's okay. We're living in the US, and as someone from abroad, you have a common set of challenges that I might be able to help you with if I have that particular schooling and education on what those issues actually are. So that's international. I'd call that inbound international. Outbound international would be the American moving abroad. Same thing. It doesn't matter where they're going. There's going to be a common set of challenges, a common set of things they need to know about. And hopefully you can make a good referral to someone in that country they're going to help them with the matters in the place they're going to. Whereas cross-border is even further down the specialty track. Cross-border means specifically about that foreign country. So you can say someone's moving to Canada. You could say like someone like Brian Ruck, Transitions Financial Advisor. He's a guy who actually has a CFP in both countries. He has a firm that is licensed in both countries. Or Marina Hernandez, she's another person. So she has the RIA equivalent in Switzerland and the US. So if you're Swiss or you're an American moving to Switzerland or vice versa, oh my goodness, you've got one firm that can truly provide that book-ended financial advice. And we try and do the same thing. I'm not registered. I don't hold myself out as being registered in Australia, but I know a lot of firms, a lot of advisors there. I can make a good referral. But anyway, that was a goal early on. I had thought I'd like to do that, but then this tsunami or nuclear bomb of compliance blew up in Australia. They had this thing called the Royal Commission, probably very similar to like a Blue Ribbon Commission in the US, where they had an unlimited budget, and unlimited powers to subpoena anyone. and the financial services industry got put through the ringer. And so now all of the fun, all of the profit, all of the incentive anyone would have to be a financial advisor has been removed in Australia. And of course, the pendulum is just beginning to swing the other direction, where they're talking about simplifying things because they just made it impossible to operate in this business. So anyway, hopefully that gets better over time. But that's the long-winded answer to your question, Maddie. So international, inbound, outbound, and cross-border being a subspecialty of that.
Wow. And how many of your 60 households would you say fall into those niches?
2/3 to 3/4. I think there's also the vintages of clients. So really the let's say 2018 vintage when, getting started, I was the same as what you described. You could fog a mirror if you had two legs, or even if you didn't, then, you would have been a good prospect for my firm. So there's the legacy clients, which would really be that quarter to third of clients that are there, and then everyone since is an Aussie expat, and really everyone this year. Maybe I'd have to think of who came on board last year, but probably for the last 2 years, not a single. Yeah, I think that's accurate. Not a single client that did not fall into that Aussie expat niche. And the niche within a niche is the business owner Aussie expat. So there's the Aussie expat that might be just some random person or an American moving to Australia. So those are the two target markets. And they could be any Aussie or any American moving to Australia. Whereas I feel like I'm really swimming in my lane, with the Aussie expats or the American. So the Aussie expat business owners or the American expat business owners.
Fascinating. Yeah. Ashley, I'd be interested in just a couple examples of kind of the technical expertise that you have to serve these folks. I think a lot of advisors don't realize by taking on a client that may have interest in living abroad or was born abroad, what that really means for the planning components. Like, how does that change the financial plan, technically speaking?
Oh man, it's fundamentally different. It starts at the fact-finding level, as a matter of fact. So the first class in the GFP is about that. There's all sorts of things you need to know about. What's the legal status of this person you're dealing with? Are they on a visa? Are they a permanent resident? Are they a citizen, a dual citizen? Because that is going to change, like literally, what road we're going down. Are they going to get bitten in the backside, possibly by the Heart Act or other things? So the way and in fact, I'm doing a presentation to the FPA just tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So these points are well versed in my head, Maddie. So thank you for asking the question. The way I define the technical issues would be by virtue of the missteps. What are the things you could do wrong? And I'd categorize them as being in descending order of consequence. And that would be, you've got your bear traps. You could lose a leg if you step on one of these things. You've got your pitfalls. You could break a leg if you fall down a pit. And then you've got your missteps. You could twist an ankle. And so bear traps, pitfalls, and missteps. Of the bear traps, I think they really center on a very, very fundamental point. And this raises eyebrows whenever you explain this to people. And that is, the US is amongst one of the only countries in the world, as Eritrea. China's just beginning to do the same. But it's one of the only countries in the world to practice what's called citizenship-based taxation. Meaning, if you are a US citizen, doesn't matter, again, if you're in Antarctica or Zimbabwe or Mars or anywhere in between, you are going to be assessed for taxation by Uncle Sam. And so what are some of the bear traps that are there? Well, tax reporting. If you fail to file your FBARs, your Form 8938s, we're talking about penalties as high as 50% of the asset value, not 50% of the growth. We're talking about Uncle Sam comes along and takes half of the whole thing that you didn't declare. And a lot of that came about as a result of the Swiss banking scandals that came to light around 2008. But these happen. People get hit with those sorts of fines. And if you've got an advisor that doesn't know what they're doing and they're party to that, then they've probably just cleaned out their E&O policy as a result of that, if it would pay at all for something like that. Another one would be PFICs. That's an acronym for Passive Foreign Investment Corporations. We spent half a lesson, so a whole hour, talking about PFICs. PFICs, what are they? Essentially, if you have a client who has a foreign domiciled mutual fund or ETF or REIT, then they have a PFIC. Okay, well, what's that mean? PFICs essentially get taxed at the highest marginal rate for every year that they're held, plus penalties and interest. But even if if there's little growth on that PFIC, then there's something that's I think is just as bad or maybe even worse, depending on who you are and how you value your time. And that is the time it takes, the time and money that it takes to account for these, because they're unbelievably complicated and will drive up your cost of filing your U.S. tax bill significantly. Another one that really doesn't hear the light of day, which it should, and I want to encourage advisors to adhere to their CFP oath of competence. Another issue is the HART Act. So the HART Act of 2008, the Heroes Earnings Assistance and Relief Tax Act of 2008, essentially an expatriating individual leaving the US, in other words, it might stumble into an exit tax on their global estate. This really hits. So if you're an American moving overseas and you want to relinquish your citizenship, not that you wouldn't do that for your love of country, but because of the untold complications that will go with being an American abroad, many. In fact, there was just an article I posted to the GFP Institute just yesterday. The trend towards increasing renunciations has been an exponential curve, and there's no exaggeration. That's exponential, starting in 2017. It's been, as the trickle sort of gradually increasing, and then since 2017, just been taken off. But anyway, so really permanent residents have that to worry about. If you become a green card holder and you're here for more than 8 or 15 years and you fail one of these 3 tests, then you get assessed for an exit tax when you leave the US, which is quite unique. A few others, I shouldn't use the word unique because that would imply it's the only one, but there are a few other places that apply that. And most advisors don't know this, and it's not readily attainable to gain that knowledge, to find out exactly what these things are. Anyway, so those are bear traps. There's some estate planning bear traps. I've got a client. This is the last example of a bear trap. He owns a highly appreciated company in Silicon Valley that the beneficial owner is actually a family trust back in Australia. Big mistake. Big mistake, because that, if things don't go his way, that could be deemed to be Australian situs. What's that mean? It means located in Australia, therefore subject to Australian tax. And let me say, Australia is a lot less forgiving with its capital gain tax than what Uncle Sam is. So those are bear traps. You could lose a leg. Pitfalls would be certain things like individual disability policies, group life policies that don't pay if you're overseas or don't pay readily. Contributing to the wrong type of account. We see this left and right. Roths, 529s, cash value life insurance. Not so much with XY advisors do we see cash value life insurance, but they don't travel well. That you could end up getting double taxed. So that's breaking a leg there. And missteps would be foreign withholding taxes in excess of what a treaty provides for. That's really an inconvenience. You might twist your ankle, get over it within a day. But if someone's moving overseas, they've still got their retirement account in the US. A treaty says, hey, you can actually be eligible for 15% withholding, or in the case of the Australian treaty, 0% withholding. The folks working at Fidelity or whatever that 401k or IRA custodian is, they have exactly zero incentive to use their eyeballs, use their brains, and read a tax treaty and understand that that's actually what it says, because every other situation they've ever encountered says 30% withholding. And so they've got nothing to gain and everything to lose by going along with what someone is saying, and that is, hey, the treaty says this. So that's an inconvenience because they're going to have possibly tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands withheld unnecessarily. They'll get it back. They can file the next year, but there's that uncertainty that exists, the lost opportunity of investing those funds, and so forth. So that's my answer, Maddie. Yep.
Yeah, really, really, really good answer. Puts a lot of perspective to what advisors will need to take into consideration when deciding to take a client like this. I'm interested, Ashley, how common is this niche? Because quite frankly, when I think of cross-border planning, I can think of just a handful of advisors in our network that focus on it. And I'm interested,
Yep.
do you have a study group of folks that work on this, or a community of advisors that focus on this niche?
Yeah, that's a great point. So what I found after spending almost 10 years in the FPA and the International Cross-Border Knowledge Circle, I was a host for them for a couple of years. What I found was that there weren't study groups coming together. There had been one in the late 2000s, in the first decade of the 2000s. What do you call it? Some people call that the noughties, the like naught, the zeros, the noughties. But anyway, there was one that got started. I wasn't a part of it. I was invited towards the end of it, but it didn't really achieve liftoff. And that's because I think that there needs to be an alignment of incentives, and that's what's been missing. So it works. I think there would be a really harmonious community if people were certainly qualified. They knew what they're doing. And they were established, and they were successful advisors already. Because I think what happens is, and I don't begrudge much. I don't begrudge advisors that are like this, because we're all there at some point. And that is, if a great prospect came along to any financial advisor, and I don't know if I've said this to you before, Maddie, I probably have. But if let's say an Aussie came along, is worth $10 million. Had several million investable assets, a business here, a business there, to practically any advisor in the country, and said, listen, here's my situation. Can you help me? That's absolutely, we can help you. Can't help you anything to do with, your Australian investment property or that inheritance you got, or the superannuation account, or any of that stuff. That's okay. We won't pretend we know what we're doing there. But we've been helping, hundreds of families. This business has been around for however long, blah, 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 blah. And that's what happens. Advisors don't disclaim that they're operating outside of their area of technical competence. Like I said, despite it being standard of conduct, code of ethics, CFP website, looking at it right now, A3, competence. Despite being in breach of that, practically every advisor I know of would still I shouldn't say not every advisor I know of. I do get a steady trickle of referrals from professional advisors that are happy to stick to their knitting and do what they do. But anyway, that's what happens. So there's 9 million Americans overseas, 30 million folks born abroad, and many, many, many millions more who pass through the US in other circumstances, like students and business travelers and so forth. I would put it to you, Maddie, I haven't researched every other niche out there, but I would put it to you that of those technical niches that we mentioned, that it's the biggest of all. In fact, it's so big that it's made a stealth entry into the CFP. If it wasn't important, why would it appear in the CFP curriculum under the estate planning side, where if you've got a non-resident spouse, you need to know that there's $157,000 annual gift exemption that you can send between those spouses? It wouldn't be there if it wasn't so common. That's the thing. There's 30 million. That's literally 1/10 of the or almost a tenth, 1/11, I guess, of the entire U.S. population is in this bucket, and yet we don't have nearly the attention called to this niche that is deserving of it. So anyway, that's the answer.
Yeah, great answer, Ashley. And I appreciate your perspective on this, that it's a super important niche to focus on for advisors who are interested in it. And I love your attitude of the abundance mentality, that there's so many clients out there that need support. There's not enough advisors to give the support.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that you've actually taken it upon yourself, Ashley, to create a more in-depth curriculum around this niche. And I'm interested in you sharing with the listeners kind of what you've built and why you built it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that was what I found was, and I wasn't alone. I think other advisors have felt this as well, but there seemed to be this cycle of advisors that would ask questions to do with their, cross-border client or international and cross-border clients. And then these very experienced advisors, that had spent, like myself, tens of thousands of hours and dollars developing this knowledge. And without the appropriate context, they didn't have any incentive to spend their time writing lengthy emails and referring them to white papers and whatever to educate advisors that were dabbling in the area. And so we saw this recycling of there were new folks, say, in this cross-border community that don't know anything, and then the experienced advisors who do know stuff but aren't really incentivized to educate whom they may view as future competitors. And so this bifurcation happened where no one was really, well, certainly the clients were suffering. At the end of it all, who's not getting served is clients. So I saw that dynamic, and I thought there's got to be a way to break this, to hack it and to fix it. And it was with that insight that I said, right, the way to do it is to launch a community that does a couple things. It provides education so that everyone's on the same platform, so that we can have intelligent conversations. People know what these bear trap pitfalls and missteps are. They're educated as to how to avoid them, how to refer out, how to refer in, depending on the client situation that presents. So the education, the community, no one knows as much as all of us. So to have a trusted network to go out to and say, hey, by the way, I've got this weird situation. A client, who would otherwise be in my target market is moving to Europe. And actually, this did happen on 2 occasions I can think of. I've had Aussies that have moved to Europe. Or my very first ever client, coincidentally, he moved to Germany. And so, I would love to be able. Did I fire him? Did I say sorry? You've moved to Germany? No, I've said I can't help you on the German side. I'm not even going to pretend. Here are some outbound international issues you should be aware of. I went and found him an advisor in Germany, and I hope he's getting great service from that advisor in Germany. But anyway, so the education, the community, the ongoing research as to best practices in serving these communities, but also compliance. Most advisors, if not everyone I've ever met in the XY community, they want to do the right thing. But finding out what the right thing is incredibly complicated and expensive. And then the fourth thing would be providing a platform, of services, a platform of tech and apps and services so that advisors can actually profitably serve that community. So what does that look like? That means foreign exchange for 1/6 the best rate that's otherwise out there. That means specialized tools to help folks figure out when their clients might be subject to that exit tax I was talking about, helping folks report on multiple on their global portfolios and multiple currencies, and so on and so. There's a whole bunch of things that really builds on the tech stack of say the XY Planning Network or others that are, or the existing tech stack that an advisor is using. So that's the GFP, the Global Financial Planning Institute, was founded to address those shortcomings that existed, the opportunity that I saw to get advisors educated, the opportunity I see also to make a referral to clients looking for someone with this knowledge, and provide the ongoing research and resources to support the clients.
Fascinating. You've been running your firm for a number of years, and now you've kind of pivoted into this space of being an expert and a community builder of this area. How does this all fit into kind of the larger plan for you and in your life? And were you expecting it to take this kind of pivot?
I should have been. I don't know if I entirely was, or that I entirely am currently, but it would appear I often think back to Alan's situation in launching XY. It feels like a very similar journey to what he must have gone through, because there's no way of knowing the future, but it would seem as though there has been a tremendous response to the GFP. We've got 25 advisors just in our inaugural class. Like literally, first email went out August 1st, class started October 1st, and we've got 25 advisors, which is nuts in that time. And we have a wait list that's even longer than that for class starting in the beginning of February. And so it's likely we'll probably have more than 50. That being the case, I am drawn to, it's my life's work to build that community. I can say that safely. However, it's also my life's work to work with clients and help them realize what possibilities lie for them. So to be honest, I really haven't figured out what's coming next. It would seem that the writing is on the wall, that I'm going to have to hire an advisor to replace me at Areté. I would still like to work with, half a dozen or 10 or so clients, but drastically reduce my time there. And so I think it's going to be apparent probably by January, late January, once we see what the enrollments are looking like for the next intake of the masterclass, exactly what my future is with the GFP, because it's probably a $15,000 undertaking to hire a recruiter to go and find someone. And then this is the other thing it's a shame about the niche that I have, but it's also why I'm developing the GFP in the first place, is how do I go and find some advisor that has, the knowledge that I do on the expat side, that could walk in, and provide the same level of service and advice. So I think it's probably going to be a 2-year transition. I can't imagine, maybe that's my short-sightedness. I just haven't met the right person yet. There was a transition, actually 2 of note in the last 6 months, to an advisory out in Madison and to creative planning, and Andrew Fisher's firm, Areté Wealth, that was recently sold to a gigantic RIA. So the big RIAs, these aggregators, the roll-ups, they're seeing that this is a real niche. So there's money in motion out there. This is there's real action there. Could that happen? Possibly, but it would have to be someone like an Andrew Fisher, who would take over the firm, because otherwise, how are these clients going to be, advised? So either internally or a sale, but I think it's much more likely to be internal. I would prefer that too.
Awesome. And I love this idea that through this network of yours, you're going to be able to have an even larger impact than what you've been able to have at Areté as an advisor to clients. You're now empowering other advisors to serve even more clients. And so the impact that you will have in this space, Ashley, is quite large. And I'm wondering, really, what are your goals with it? What are you hoping to achieve with rolling out the GFP Institute?
I'm so thankful. It's such an unexpected reply that I might have here, Maddie, but I'm so grateful to XY Planning Network. And here's why. Not only has Alan provided, he's kind of just a template of what I see as happening for myself, but coincidentally, later today is a presentation from someone who, he doesn't know it, he might actually, but because our performance coach is the same guy, Peter Shallard, but Reese, who will be presenting, I think at 1:00 Central Time, I forget his last name, but he's actually done exactly what I see myself as doing. The idea of the GFP is so big. I think we'll be looking at raising money, raising capital. Presently, it's me. I've got a partner, Matt Gorin. He's actually the director of curriculum. He's a bigwig. Oh no, I shouldn't say bigwig. He's actually. He's with the American College. He's a PhD. He helped them redo their CFP curriculum. So he's a fantastic partner to have on board. I've also got a PhD working group helping build out this curriculum. But that doesn't answer your question. The focus here is now we've got a great US curriculum, international, inbound and outbound. The next step looks like doing the same thing for the major countries, that English-speaking folks, are from or moving to, like Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. So building an inbound, outbound, starting from those countries, and then doing the third level would be doing a cross-border curriculum. So doing a US Canada, a US UK, US Australia, making it so that if you want that education, it's available for you. So that's what excites me. There's also, again, it's just, I see the example Alan's had here, and Alan and Michael have had. It's exactly the same. It's like there's a whole bunch of niche opportunities that I see in serving this market, like tech opportunities, investment opportunities, planning opportunities, that I'm just excited to get into and develop. That's what really gets my heart racing is looking at that. But one other thing, Maddie, I know we're pressed for time here, but one other thing that excites me more than anything in starting the GFP is doing what my friend Matt Jarvis is doing next year, and that is designing my own conference. So, and like what you guys have done too. But if you think about it, we've got these GFP members that are serving clients from all over the place, and members who themselves are from all over the place. What's stopping us from having a conference in Mallorca, the island of Mallorca off the coast of Spain, or in Hawaii, or in, you name it. I mean, literally, you name it. And why not? Because we're dealing with an international folks, target market to begin with. So having conferences in places that you want to go to, and making your life something that's exciting. The work that you do is the work of your dreams. You get to go to these incredible places and have these amazing experiences and get content that you'd never, ever get access to otherwise.
I love this industry so much, and I'm so thankful for the opportunity to do these podcasts because I get so much energy from the advisors I interview, and it's so amazing, Ashley, the kind of energy that you're speaking with about this. That this is really your life's work, and you don't have any plans to pivot anytime soon. And how lucky is that for you to really have found this space that you just love so much?
Yeah, there is a lot of luck. There's also a lot of soul searching and self-help books and great communities that help you arrive at making the right decision. But yeah, actually just in February, my wife and my family and I were moving to Australia for 2 years, so I'll be running these businesses from down there. I think there's a behavioral bias. This is one I'm really trying to whack wherever I see it. But people get nervous. They always ask, "Oh, so where are you?" And it's like, listen, where I am doesn't matter. I will set my Calendly to hours that I'm comfortable in meeting. You don't need to worry if I'm in Brisbane, Australia, or if I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm going to be as present and focused on you as I would be anywhere. So for the next 20 months, we'll be in Brisbane. Hopefully, these COVID restrictions will begin to lift by mid next year, which is what I'm expecting with the pace of these vaccines rolling out. So then, we'll likely be looking at having a conference. Maybe fingers crossed later next year. Probably more like 2022. So it's nuts, and I've been a part of Limitless Advisor for a couple of years, and some of the exercises that they do are things like if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? And that's what got me to launch the GFP. Another one would be, if money was no object, then what would you do? And the answer's pretty much the same, but a little bit of a pivot towards education, impact, family planning, environmental stewardship, things like that. That's maybe a bit beyond financial planning. But I hear you, Maddie. I hear you. I think we're so lucky. The field that we're in. It's just so many benefits of being a financial planner and doing the work that we do and making the impact that we make on people's lives.
Did you know that was going to be the result of your work in this space, Ashley, when you started? I mean, if we were speaking directly to advisors that are considering getting into this space, did you expect that you would be able to have this kind of impact when you entered into it?
It's a great question, because I think probably everyone answering that question honestly would probably say yes and no. It'd say both, because you've got to hedge your bets and be like, well, I don't know what I don't know, and I don't know how competitive or helpful or unhelpful the folks in this business might be. But also, there's a belief that you have in yourself. And what got me, I know I'm not the only one that's answered it this way, but what got me to become a financial advisor was I did that 3 circles exercise by Jim Collins, about what you're passionate about, what you're actually skilled at, and what you understand the business model of, what's in the middle of that. And what lay in the middle for me was financial advice, but I had turned my back on it. I'd started an investment club at my undergrad university and grew it to a couple hundred members, but financial planning was completely off the path for me at that time. I would just as well have become a shoe salesman because financial planning at that time in Australia, it was one of these sort of, not like this quasi white collar business, but you didn't need anything. You didn't need a high school education. You didn't need a degree, a CF, none of that. No. And so it was very lax, the regulations. It was all about selling enough annuities and life insurance to make it to the President's Cup trip in Fiji or wherever, Bali. It was not professional. It was all about product sales. And so I just totally closed it off and then went to a CFP information session, which was just as much as an RIA information session at Berkeley back in 2008. And the scales, fell from my eyes. It was just like, oh my God, this is exactly it. So did I know? No. Did I expect it? No. But when I realized that no one else was doing it and that there were active barriers in the way, and that's a whole nother conversation, better suited to, a beer at a bar sometime. But there were barriers. There were literally obstacles, people saying, do not do this for their own reasons. And I'm glad I had the stomach, to be like, no, I think they're wrong. And I know they're wrong now in retrospect. I'm like, certain things that were said were absolutely false. Like some of the founders of the profession today said things to me that were categorically wrong. And it was like, okay, how long as a newbie in a field, if one of the most, storied advisors in the whole profession says to you, states a fact, with passion and emphasis, how long do you think it's going to take for you to prove them wrong? And to be like, what don't I know? Because clearly this person speaks with so much authority. I've just got to listen to them. I've got to take it on faith. But it took me about 8 years. Literally, it took me 8 years to realize actually what that person said was just not correct.
Wow. Wow. I'm so thankful for this interview, Ashley. I think our listeners are going to really be enlightened by a lot of your commentary around this. I can't help but wonder, Ashley, if you're running 2 businesses, I know you're a dad, you're about to move around the world. Do you sleep? I guess the common question to Michael Kitces is, do you ever sleep? How do you stay sane? How do you take care of yourself in this kind of especially tumultuous time?
It's not that bad. Well, thank you for the question and the implicit compliment there. I don't often compare myself to Kitces, and no one ever has. But anyway, so no, I actually, I attribute this to Stephanie and Matt's work with Limitless Advisor, in just getting really clear about delegating and the whole concept of client surges. So I am very busy. I'm also very structured with my time. So, excuse me, I really try and time block. I'll have client on weeks, client off weeks. Kellen is great. He certainly does a lot of heavy lifting. Sakabi, my marketing guy, he's fantastic too. And we've just, I don't know, I've just had a real focus on efficiency kind of my whole life. I've been obsessed with efficiency, getting more done with less. Don't reinvent the wheel. But let's make sure that wheel is aerodynamic, has low rolling resistance, and those tires are pumped up. So that's it. I've probably bitten off more than I can chew right now. Like I've been pretty stressed with the move. I've got to register with the SEC now that I'm going overseas. We're putting together a final exam now for this GFP masterclass, rolling out next year. Client end of year with Areté. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, but that's really it. Is having goals. I do this daily goal review, quarterly retreats to get up on goals, and figure out what my rocks are. And then we've got weekly meetings on a number of different topics with Kellen and group. So things get done, and it's about holding people accountable, to do what they're committed and tasked with doing.
Ashley, thanks for that perspective, and I love how you just casually say you're kind of stressed. You've got to register with the SEC and do all these things. You seem to really keep yourself nice and consistent. And I think that focus on efficiency is a really good lesson to all of our listeners to really think about, as you go out on your own, it really will just be you for a little bit, and that you do have to do a lot more with less.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, any last commentary to the listeners about maybe what you would have told younger Ashley about his future in this space, if you could. Any recommendations for our listeners who are considering entering into this beautiful industry of ours?
Yeah, I really, really, really early on, I had a conversation with a lady who came from a professional services background, very smart lady, who had fallen in love coincidentally with Brisbane, Australia, my hometown. And she said, "Great, I would love to launch a cross-border firm, as you're planning to do." And she used this word. She said, "But my thing is, I'm very empirical. I like to experience things myself because I think that's the best teacher." And I love the way she phrased that. She said empirical. I was like, yeah, that's me too. But it's been my undoing. And that's my answer to your question, is because I didn't listen to folks, to the consultants, to the annual studies and so forth, and what people like Michael and Alan are saying about, pursue a niche, because if you're undifferentiated, you're really just not going to get the referrals and have the growth and have the efficiency that you get when you are differentiated, doing very, very, similar work from one client to the next. And so I would have done that. I probably would have taken a side hustle and really focused on that Australian side and gotten my graduate diploma in Australia sooner, and just been able to hit the ground running with that. Coulda, shoulda, woulda with the expat market and the niche focus. I think it probably would have slowed growth for the first 2 years because you're still learning, the basics at that point, but would have accelerated it now. And I feel like that would be my answer. But I've also, just thrilled with the journey. I'm especially happy where I'm at today. It's fantastic. I have to pinch myself, sometimes. But yeah, it's been a wild journey. Learned so much, met some incredible people. And I think mostly I appreciate the culture that exists within the financial planning community, where this is not like investment banking. This is not like management consulting, where people, you'd be hard pressed to get anyone to give you any time. I talk to new advisors all the time, offer them tips and hints. I have to, be mindful of my time, but I do, carve that out and share my experiences. And I know I like to pay it forward because others helped me as well.
Love that, Ashley, so much. Thank you for such a beautiful interview. I hope our listeners enjoy this. Ashley, it's been a total pleasure to know you over the past couple of years and to watch what you've built. I cannot wait to catch up with you soon as you make the transition abroad. But thank you so much for your impact on this industry, and don't take it lightly. You really have had an impact both on our network and certainly on your clients and the folks that you've come into contact with. Thank you so much, Ashley, for being on XYPN Radio.
Maddie, thank you for all that you do. You're the unsung hero here. We need to thank you for the work that you've done in elevating XYPN.
Thank you. I so appreciate that.
All right.
Avocado toast, selfies, a mountain of student loan debt. Gen Y is anything but traditional. And with over 75 million people, it's a population you don't want to ignore. Learn more about how to serve this unique population in our guide called Attract and Profitably Serve Millennial Clients in Your RIA. Discover 3 key ways to tap into the millennial market and 6 things that they want from their financial advisor. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/millennials for your free copy. Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN Radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes, and finally, to find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You are not alone, and you are not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm, and that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.